Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Frank Mahaffey. I'm an old band director, a grumpy old band director who is very disappointed that you have to have something like this to sort of warm up with because you can't have music every day. So this is something I'm doing mostly for Maple Run people who want to have something to do, you guys. This could be a beginning or an intermediate warm-up. It can even be for high school kids by changing it a little bit. But this one is going to be the first one I've done. I did one a couple weeks ago, but I had too many chins. So we're going to airbrush those out when I take a breath. These are the sheets that are going to be online somewhere. One is for trombone and one is for trumpet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play off of the trombone one. The trumpet one is exactly the same since trumpet is a transposing instrument. If I want to have a trumpet play a B flat on a trombone, which is normal, trumpet has to see a C. And so you have to sort of figure it out as you go along. But the tone is down an octave with this and and up an octave with the trumpet. So you sort of have to figure out as you go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mixture of long tones, quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, sixteenths, and we're going to do some beginning slur stuff. And I'm going to do the whole long tones first for 5 beats. I've got a metronome right here next to the camera, and it's set up so you can hear it. And if you have one at home, it could look like that. It could look like something like this. Does the same thing. Okay, you just set it up. I set this one up to 70 beats a minute, and I figured that's a really good speed for somebody in elementary school who plays really well, or for somebody in middle school who is in good shape. So anyway, I'm going to start with the trombone 1, page 1, brass warm-ups for beginners, number 1, and you don't have to play too loud, but what you have to do, put both feet on the floor, sit up straight, and try not to drool too much. So here we go. We're going to start with whole note on a B flat scale. That's the end of the A section. I divided this up into A, B, C, D, and E for the tonguing and for getting long tones. When you're playing it, try to keep your breath to as steady as you can. Okay, now we're going to start with quarter notes, same scale. 2, 3. Make sure you're using a T sound. Don't make them too long or too short. Try to make each one sound the same. Okay, that's a quarter. Now you might notice I've got a fancier trombone. This is a bass trombone. It's a small bass trombone. It's got 2 valves that you can play instead of 6 position. You can just hit one of the side valves instead of doing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the regular slide on it for now because it's what you probably are doing it yourself. Now I'm going to the C section with eighth notes. 3. If you're a euphonium player doing this, you might notice that I have the fingering for what we're doing. Not sure whether you know it or not, but put it in anyway, above the notes and trombone positions are below. Now I'm going to the D section with triplets. Now we're going to go to 16ths. And the way I'm talking in between the sections, I want you to take a little bit of space in between doing it yourself. Let your lip get used to playing. You have to warm it up. That's why I call this brass warm-ups. If you try to do it straight to make it fast, it doesn't do the purpose of getting a warm-up. It's like stretching if you're doing any kind of athletic activity. So anyway, this is the E section with 16th notes. Okay, now you can repeat those if you want to, if you're not playing along with this tape, well, not tape, video. Da 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 da, 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 and move up the scales that way. Now the next section, excuse me, is two other scales. For trombone, it's a C scale and a D scale that I just wrote in with positions. In the trumpet, it's a D and an E. These are gradually working up to upper range notes. You don't do the long tone like at the very beginning of this with after the first time you do it. You can skip right ahead to the quarter note section. So if I was doing a C major or for trumpet a D major, I would start with the B section with, then I go to the C section after I do all of what B was. Then I go to the D section, do the triplets. Then I go to the E section and do 16ths. Then if you wanted to, and you're able to, because you have to work up to it, you could do the D major or the E major for trumpet. It's a little bit higher for the upper note, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, this is also going to be for beginning slur exercises, which strangely enough, I'm not going to do as a slur. I'm going to do it as straight notes, but not short, because you have to sort of get used to what your embouchure, your lip muscles have to do to change in order to play a high note to a low note. You have to sort of open your jaw. If you're watching this and you see my bottom of my mouth, my chin come down a little bit, excuse me, I'm old, is that as you play the lower notes, your mouth opens up a little bit. Don't worry too much about that. That's something that your teacher will show you how to do a little bit more, but something so you're aware of. So I'm starting on the beginning slur and flexibility, starting with the A. So I just just went from 1 to 4, or if you're a trumpet, 0, 2, 1, and 1, 2. And now I'm going to do upper beginning slur exercise, which isn't a slur exactly right now, for the B section. Okay, those are 2 notes with the middle register. Now I'm going to do 3-note beginning slur flexibility exercise with sort of a combination of A, B, and C. So now we're going to do an official slur. What you're going to do, maybe you could, there's different ways of sort of visualize this in your head, is you're going to go E-ah, 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 E-ah. And if you can see my jaws coming down. Now I'm going to turn the metronome off for this one. All right. Now, this is the D section of beginning slur and flexibility, and this is a real slur. We're going to start on the concert F going to B flat, and we're just going to do 2-note slurs. I'm not going to stop my breath. I'm just going to go. And I'm not going to try to connect more than 2 notes at a time. So I'm going to go a little bit slower on this. And each one of these I'm going to repeat 4 times. I've got it on this sheet as 2 times, but I'm just going to do 4 times because it's a little bit easier, just in case I mess it up. Then I'll go to second position. Then I'll go to third. Then I'll go to fourth position. Now you might notice as you move the slide out, you have to take a little bit more breath in order to do it. When I make the next tape or next recording, talking like somebody who grew up with tape recording, when you do the next one, when I do the next one, it'll be a little bit more, maybe 3-note slurs and different directions for them, but that's something for down the road. Now the reason I do this, I've been playing for 50 years. Even now, and especially now, it's if you can do this every day before you do some real playing. Even if you're able to do it before you play in your band or your orchestra, when those get back together, the longer you do this and the more carefully you do this, and less you try to be Superman as you're playing it, the longer you'll be able to play. Your lips get used to it, the feel gets into it. Now, what I'm going to do is I take an exercise or two. This I'm going to take out of Trumpet book, or I can take it out of the Trombone book. This is the Rubank Intermediate. Some of you guys who I'm giving intermediate lessons or giving lessons to, this is the book I'm starting with. And what I'm doing is I'm going to page 4, and I'm going to play number 3 on page 4. This one, this is an easy exercise, but I play it so that when I'm playing it, I sound exactly like this as I'm doing it. I have pronounced the notes, I articulate the notes, and I try to make it sound kind of plain, but that's so that when you're playing and you're not thinking about how you're doing things, you'll be able to do it consistently the same way. So this is number 3. I'll just play some of this. Now, the number 4, that's just the beginning of number 3. Number 4 is a little bit harder, not very much. And I'm playing it not necessarily with a metronome. I'm just doing it at the speed I feel comfortable with. If you are haven't played for a long time, you're going to have to work out positions, the rhythm, before you're able to really try it like this. But this is the idea of it. So that might be something that I do, and it'll be longer than this. I might do it with something I'm a little bit more familiar with, which would be things that I've played over the years. One is a bass trombone part. And the reason I do the stuff that I did at the beginning of this recording is so that I can do things a little bit more consistently like this. That's one thing that this is how long it is. I played the first 2 lines. Then I might take a minute and let my chops relax. For you guys, this might be part of what you're doing for your lesson. Obviously, when you're playing this back after the first time or two that you do it, you don't have to listen so much to this because you'll already know what I'm talking about. Then I might work up to something a little bit different. And I'll spend a lot of time doing, maybe for me, a half an hour doing things like this, along with the warm-up at the beginning. And then take a little bit of a break. Taking a break while you're sitting there, not getting up and getting something to eat, is a really good thing to do when you're doing warm-ups or when you're practicing. Don't get up because you're more likely not to get back to it. But get yourself into the habit of playing, preparing yourself for playing, doing some things. And it isn't always the stuff that I'm doing right now, but it'll help you to be able to play longer. It'll help you to get more consistent. And it doesn't happen overnight. You have to be patient. Being a musician and being a brass player, especially because that's what I do professionally as a teacher and as a performer. What we do is to get as consistent without having to think about it, sort of like David Ortiz closing his eyes and hitting a baseball 500 feet. You have that muscle memory, or you have that memory that you know how to do it without having to look. Trombone players are good at this. We don't have to look at our slides after a certain point. Usually it starts in about a couple of years. You don't have to look at your slide to know where it is because the muscle memory helps. So this is the first recording. Play along with the beginning of this recording just to get used to it. If you have a metronome, set it to 70 or 72 or 73 and do the first long tones, quarters, eighths, triplets with that going. That really helps your brain get used to consistent counting. So hopefully I'll get something else out in a couple weeks that'll be a little bit harder. But if you still want to just keep doing this basic warm-up, that's fine too, as long as you're playing. Just remember, the COVID's going to get over with, and you got to be ready for it when it does, because you know what Gary Sanchez is doing for batting with the Yankees right now, and that's because he didn't do it for a while. So you just keep up with things a little bit. If you play 3 or 4 days a week, you're going to be fine when things get back to normal. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later.